we see that the game started off with a different first move. So that's the first big detail. Not e4, no French. We got d4 today. And I'm going to fast forward through the opening stage because while c takes d5, e takes d5, I mean, that early decision, that can be discussed in further detail. As we fast forward here, I think this move, h3, that's the first big wrinkle in the game, has been seen before. And the point is the Gukesh specialty, to push the pawn to g4 and stop the bishop from safely landing on f5. As the game continued, a queen trade was offered and a queen trade was had at this moment. Queen takes b3, a takes back, and here was a critical moment. The bishop, it enters enemy territory, and it didn't leave. The bishop comes to c2, hitting this b3 pawn. But for Gukesh, he had this all worked out. Bishop f4, not the first time this has been played. The former world champion Vladimir Kramnik, he essayed just this against Arjun Erigaisi in the 2023 World Rapid Championship, if I'm remembering the tournament. But bishop f4 comes out. Bishop takes b3, just quickly to show, not really available. The bishop, it's getting hounded and trapped if it goes back to c4. This is a critical detail. It is going to be a pawn back for white because after b5, knight takes. Thank you very much. I will gladly grab material, excuse me. I'm mixing my words together. Maybe that's a new one, add to the dictionary, but you will not be surviving this with the rook on a8 lost. So as the game continued here, we saw h5, good decision. Rook g1, we saw a capture. Knight bd7, exclam, I would say, from Ding Lerin, a necessary move, because after the knight dropped back to d2, rook g8, trying to play g5 and open up a path back for this bishop to survive on the light squares. And here's where Gukesh went wrong. He had to make the move rook to c1, allowing g5. The bishop slides back. The bishop survives for black. It's a complicated battle, chances for both sides. White slightly the side for choice. But in the game, instead, g5 was Gukesh's choice. The knight hops to h5 with tempo. The bishop back, rook h8, another move that deserves an exclamation point, going after this loose bishop on h2, stopping bishop h3 as well because of too much pressure down the open h-file. So as we continue, f3, trying to play e4, and for Ding Lerin, knight g7, a step back, but a step in the right direction. That knight regroups, reroutes, knight e6, go after the g5 and d4 pawns, or loose pawns across the board. But here I would say the critical moment of the game. Rook h5, it deserves a question mark, maybe even two. We don't mean to be harsh, but the bishop on c2 is trapped. It is in enemy territory. And if we go back a step here, instead of this move rook h5, both bishop to e7, going after the pawn on g5 with the bishop to try to get this knight on d2 out of the way as well, or bishop f5, just saving the piece that did in fact get trapped. That was the way to go. You see the evaluation slightly better for black. In the game, though, neither of those choices made. Rook h5, question mark, e4 play deserves that exclamation point. And as the dust settled in the middle of the board, black wasn't even able to get a third pawn for the lost piece. Bishop f2, only move here. Bishop g7, and this fine. You see the blue arrow? It's not from me. It's saying this is the only move that gives white the advantage. Every single other move, say bishop d4, just to show you what this looks like. After rook g2, things like this. Bishop takes b3, knight takes back, and bishop to e3. We see that there will be that third pawn, an essential third pawn, for the lost minor piece. Instead, knight e2, knight takes b3, and only two pawns. Pardon that siren, but the ambulance, it was needed in this one because you're not getting that minor piece back. Black has 5 pawns, white has 3, 2 pawns not enough. And as the game continued, it did look challenging. King e2, the right square, Jude and I were struggling to figure out exactly where to go. And as this one went forward from here, black is going back and forth doing the right thing. But then right here and right now, king e8 took way too much time from Ding Lerin. You see 6 minutes and 32 seconds remain at this moment. After the move, 1 minute 50 seconds. It was the right move, but unfortunately took him too much time, which makes it the wrong decision. Rook back to h5 and knight f3, a good decision. And here, Ding Lerin had to play rook takes d1, and after the rook takes back on d1, maybe keep more pieces on the board with knight to d7. Just keep some options alive. It's not that easy to break through. But Ding Lerin did not have time. He spent way too much of it early. He spent way too much on the previous decision, king d8. And after knight takes f3, king takes f3, another proper recapture. Bishop d4 was played. It's kind of last-ditch effort territory because the pawn on g5 was not available to capture. Showing that real quick, rook takes g5, allowed rook takes d7, king takes d7, and the rook slides to d1 with check. If the king goes back to e8, bishop h4, and if the king goes forward, bishop h3 check, f5, and these positions, it's not going to work out for black. The open board is an issue. We get a position like this, and white has many choices, rook e1, but the last pawn does remain, and the black king is in trouble. King safety is paramount, and it can still be attacked. The bishops work together very nicely in this position, and so that would have been a winning advantage for Gukesh. In the game, it ended quite quickly. Rook h1, rook takes g5, bishop h3, and we actually saw the game end at this moment after rook h5. There were no more moves played, but bishop takes f5, the blue arrow, but it's a dagger to the heart of black's position. Bishop takes f5. If you take with the pawn, you lose your rook on h5. That defender is removed. And rook takes h1. No, you're not taking back. You throw in the intermezzo. Bishop takes d7 with check. And once the king takes back, the rook on h1 is gone. So bishop takes f5. That sealed the deal. Didn't even get to that point because Ding Lerin had no time. He had no hope. And now he has no lead in the match. It is officially 1.5, 1.5. And that is your game review of the third game of this FIDE World Championship match.